So yeah, before we begin, I would like to introduce Megan here. So Megan was a student at Scripps, and we became good friends because mostly we're passionate freedivers, so we like to go out and explore the world underwater, which we prefer to the life above water most times. um, yeah, and then at some point she approached me and she was like, "Hey, I'd like to video edit. I have all like making those mini documentaries for this organization for kids, and I would like to feature some more scientists. And I thought maybe you're interested in doing something like that." And I was like thinking, and for a second I was like, "Yes, Megan, I have something for you, but just warning, it's gonna be big." And then I told her about this expedition that I was on together with Paul here and other people from Scripps, including also Michelle, to explore the deep sea environment just off the coast of Southern California. There is all this data. It was a total of like 90 minutes, 90 hours of footage that was just sitting on some hard drive. And so I would love to put all of this cool information together and share it and make it accessible for people. And then Megan said, yes, let's do it. Yeah, so that's how we started brainstorming, outline, and research all those creatures, the whole script, and then narrated everything, and gave all that material to Megan. She put everything together and made this really nice, beautiful film out of it that we're about to see. And so we're really excited to share it with you tonight. And with that, I would like to hand the floor over to Megan.
Hello, yes, hi, I'm Megan Patton. I graduated from UCSD and Scripps last summer with a bachelor's degree in ecology, behavior, and evolution, and a minor in marine science. I started at STEMsGrow in 2020, right in the midst of the pandemic, for the suggestion of my organic chemistry professor. I had to do a group project in which I did some video editing. She's like, hey, you should go check out STEMsGrow. So I went into this meeting with Kristina thinking that I was just going to do some video editing. But she asked me what my passions were, and we had this great conversation. And she ended up giving me a platform for marine biology. I wanted to create documentaries using the videos that I was taking while I was freediving. So that's how Worlds Underwater started, which is the marine science corner of STEMsGrow. So fast forward, I created my first documentary, Fish Form and Function, which was based off of one of the first marine biology lessons I learned in community college. And that was amazing, that was great. And then I got really busy with school, so I stopped doing things for a long time. And then I came to UCSD, and I still really wanted to work on the documentaries, but I had to put on the back burner. And during my time at UCSD, I was making all these really amazing marine biologist friends. And I thought, you know what? I kind of want to make Worlds Underwater a collaborative project. So I started talking to people like Johanna, and we know how that turned out. So yeah, now we've got this beautiful documentary, and we'll go ahead and show that right after we talk about STEMsGrow. We'll give it to Kristina to take that away.
Thank you. So as they said, my name is Kristina Lopez. I am the founder of STEMsGrow. It's a nonprofit organization focused on science outreach to K through 8 kids, kindergarten through 8th grade children. And I really founded STEMsGrow based on, I've always felt like, and I have some slides actually, so I can put the slides, but I really just want to talk for a minute about the organization and kind of why it came to be. And really, the reason is just because I've always felt like there's this sort of intimidation factor when it comes to science, where if you don't think you're a scientist, then, some of the terms and some of just the topics can seem a little bit overwhelming. And I feel like it's important to start children at a very young age to expose them to these scientific concepts, get them thinking like a scientist, and really just get them comfortable with the concepts so that they're overcoming that intimidation factor at a very young age. So we do this through science outreach, through hands-on scientific experiments, through videos like what Megan created, and our goals are to teach them a thing or two about science, not from a textbook perspective and covering the topics that they're going to learn in a classroom environment, but more from an appreciation standpoint and just understanding some high-level concepts and getting excited about it. Because I think we're all scientists here. We all get excited about thought and learning about marine biology and worlds underwater, or we get excited to think about topics in biotechnology, topics in any aspect of science. So I want to spread that excitement across youth and younger generations to really inspire them towards future pathways in STEM. So let's move this over to. Is that the one? Yes. So I'm going to talk for a little bit about the organization, just some background, some history. I don't want to take up a lot of time on this because really I am just as excited as you guys to see the journey video. I have not watched it yet, and that was intentional because I already know it's going to be phenomenal. And I do also just want to pause for a second and just talk about my interactions with Megan. So she said that she came to me and we talked about her passions for science outreach and specifically marine biology and diving, and said, I really want to create this video. Her initial video is called Fish, Form, and Function. And she said, let me work on it and I'll come back to you with what I'm thinking and some ideas and a video and you can take a look. Blown away. I mean, absolutely blown away. She is just a national leader. It's the reason that she went and transitioned from being a volunteer to being on our board as a board member, because she is just a phenomenal leader, a phenomenal scientist, and has a really strong knack for taking these complex scientific concepts and delivering it to really young kids and making it understandable and relatable. So kudos to Megan again. So a little bit about STEM's growth.
Do we press N?
N. Does that work?
Yes.
Oh, I think we also have
Oh, yeah.
on here, right? So there's live stream, there's local. So we'll talk about our team. I've already talked about some of the history on it, a couple of examples of outreach activities, our goals for this year and next year, and then we are a nonprofit organization. We do operate on donations. It is completely optional. This is not here to pressure you or ask for donations or anything. We're here for science. So, as I said, our board members consist of myself as the founder of STEM's Grow, Megan, our board member responsible for, among other things, worlds underwater, and then Emiko Ito. Unfortunately, she could not be here today. She's doing another presentation for her. She's pursuing a master's in engineering right now, and she had a very, very big capstone project today. So hopefully, it went well. Sure. So again, I already kind of spoke to this a little bit, but it's really just an interest in pursuing that understanding and appreciation, and really just an excitement around science and on scientific concepts, and questioning the world around you, being curious, really, is what we want for the kids that come and experience our events. Just a little bit of facts and figures, just from a more practical standpoint for a moment. One thing that I've found is I feel like kids and youth, and this is, we're talking right now as a board about expanding our presence beyond K through 8 into like high school students as well. And part of the reason for that is because I think there's a perception out there that if you pursue a STEM degree, you need to go into, you're going to be a bench scientist. And that's really not the case. I'm sure many of you know there's so many opportunities within STEM fields and STEM careers. So we really want to pursue that greater understanding of what you can do with STEM degrees and with just the mindset of a scientist. A little bit about our history. It was founded in 2017. It was actually just founded because I had a passion for science outreach and for working with kids. I used to go into my kids' elementary school classrooms, preschool classrooms quite a bit and do outreach experiments, and I loved it so much that I created a company around it and just had some fun with it. About 2 years later, I realized that it would do better as a nonprofit organization and that it attract more volunteers and really have a broader reach with the organization. So it became a nonprofit organization literally 3 months before the pandemic. could not have been worse timing. We started as a nonprofit organization. Our initiatives were to do in-person science outreach. That changed with COVID, so we moved a lot of our platforms online. So you'll find that a lot of our outreach experiments and things like that are really through our website. Now that COVID is still around, but I hope the worst is behind us. We're moving back to in-person events, and that's why I am absolutely thrilled to have you guys here and to be doing this event. So thank you. Just some examples of some outreach activities that we've done. We had a robotics team. You can visit our website, www.stemsgrow.org, to learn about some more of the lesson plans and outreach activities that we've done. A little bit about our 24 and 25 goals. I know Megan has some very lofty goals, and I'm sure you'll do well with them, to expand the World Underwater series with a kelp forest documentary. And we're also planning a roadshow to go to some other areas and to share this video and hold panel discussions. And then you'll see some additional science outreach that really are tailored around our specific experiences and our interests. But we fully expect to grow. Donation opportunities. Again, I'm not going to spend much time on this, but you can donate on our website if you'd like to provide an optional donation. You can do so through PayPal. We are a volunteer-led organization. None of us are getting paid for this. We just love what we do. And now with all of this, I am going to get to what we are all here for and launch our journey through the deep video and enjoy.
Have you heard about the deep sea before? Does the word deep sea make you think about mystery, wonder, and the big unknown? Then you're not alone. The deep sea is the least explored ecosystem on Earth, and we still know very little about it.
Deep sea make you
My
think
name
about
is Johanna
mystery,
Gutleben. I'm a
wonder,
researcher at the
and
Scripps
the big
Institution
unknown?
of Oceanography
Then
in
you're
Sumner
not
Hall,
alone.
California. I
The
study
deep sea
the
is the
diversity
least
of
explored,
organisms, especially of microorganisms, and their roles in deep sea ecosystems off the Californian coast. In this video, I will take you on a journey through different parts of the deep sea and show you some of my favorite organisms, small and large. We will explore the abyssal plains, visit a seamount, and look at the slopes of the continental shelf off the coast of Southern California. Together, we will explore these different environments deep down below and hopefully resolve some mysteries. However, many mysteries will remain for future explorers like you to unravel. All the continents and islands, the mountains, deserts and rainforests, every city, every country and all the people in the world live on only 1/3 of Earth's surface. The ocean covers the other 2/3 of Earth's surface. But the ocean is not just wide, it's also extremely deep. The average depth of the ocean is almost 3,700 meters, more than 12,000 feet, which is deeper than most mountains in California are high. About 75% of all the world's ocean is deep ocean, always cold and dark. You might be wondering why we know so little about the deep sea. This is because it's very difficult to study this part of the ocean. Exploring the deep sea requires very high-tech equipment that can withstand extreme conditions and still remain functional. Salt water, unpredictable weather at sea, and most importantly, the very high pressures deep down in the ocean need a lot of skillfully engineered technology. On top of that, you need expert technicians to operate and steer these instruments. In this video, we will see a remotely operated vehicle called Sebastian in action. It is about the size of a minivan and weighs 3,200 kilograms, more than 7,000 pounds. Remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, are large robots that are attached to the ship with a long cable. Over this cable, the pilots in the ship can steer the robot and manipulate its arms to collect samples in the deep ocean. ROVs were first developed in the 1960s by the US Navy and are used for offshore oil and gas industry. Only in the last few years we use ROVs for science and ocean exploration. This ROV, Sebastian, can dive to a depth of 4,500 meters, more than 14,700 feet, and stay down there for as long as the scientists and the technicians want it to. Sebastian can move underwater with the help of 5 thrusters. One thruster moves it sideways, 2 move it forward and back, and another 2 move it up and down. Sebastian is also equipped with lots of instruments. It has sensors to measure salinity, temperature and depth. It has strong LEDs and several cameras, one of extremely high resolution, that live streams everything the ROV encounters directly to the ship as well as the internet. Most importantly, Sebastian has 2 robotic arms that are operated very precisely by the pilots in the ship's control room, using only joysticks and a lot of experience. The ROV pilots are very selective and careful with collecting animals. They are so good they can sample very small and fragile organisms. Sebastian carries containers for storing the samples to bring them back up to the ship at the end of the day. All of the deep sea videos in this documentary were recorded by the cameras mounted on Sebastian, who traveled many times to the bottom of the ocean and back up. When you visit the beach and swim in the ocean, you are not in the deep sea yet. You are in the epipelagic zone, or the sunlight zone. This zone reaches up to 200 meters, more than 600 feet deep. That's about twice the height of the Statue of Liberty. In this zone, there is still enough light for small microscopic plants called phytoplankton to live. Algae, seaweeds, seagrass and many corals also live in the sunlight zone. They make their own food using sunlight and in turn feed schools of fish, whales, turtles and many other familiar animals. When algae and plankton die, they start to slowly sink. They form little particles that gently descend downwards as marine snow. We're slowly sinking together with these particles and the sunlight slowly starts to fade away. This is the deep sea. It starts at around 200 meters or 656 feet depth and reaches down to 10,900 meters, more than 30,000 feet. In fact, we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the deep sea, which makes up half of our own planet. At around 200 meters deep, we enter the mesopelagic zone, or the twilight zone. In this boundary layer between the sunlit ocean and the deep sea, there is only very little light left. Yet, fish, jellyfish, and squid call this area their home. Hiding here in the half shadows during the day, many squid and fish rise up to the surface to feed at night and return down to the twilight zone in the morning. This daily movement of organisms from the depths to the shallows and back is called diel vertical migration and is the largest migration of animals on Earth. Still, we are far from the bottom of the ocean. Starting at around 1,000 meters or more than 3,000 feet, the midnight zone or bathypelagic zone starts. Here it is pitch black and temperatures are close to freezing. This zone extends down to 4,000 meters, more than 13,000 feet, below the ocean surface. Here, pressure is more than 100 times greater than the pressure at sea level. To show you how great the pressure becomes, we placed a styrofoam cup on the ROV Sebastian when it dove to bathy pelagic depths. The pressure of the deep sea squeezed the air inside the styrofoam, shrinking the cup to this size. We will start our explorations at the sandy bottoms we find in the midnight zone or bathy pelagic zone. The plains on the seafloor are covered with sand, or, like we scientists call it, sediment. What seems to look like an underwater desert is actually home to a lot of organisms, especially very small ones. Sediment is inhabited by communities of microorganisms, mostly bacteria and archaea. Even though these organisms are so small you cannot see them without a microscope, all sediment microbes together are estimated to be up to 3% of the total living biomass on Earth. There is very little food or other energy sources available for these microbes, so they mostly have just enough energy to exist, but not enough to really grow. The top layer of deep-sea sediment still has some oxygen available, but deeper down in the sediment, the oxygen has been used up and nutrients are depleted, so the microbes there are adapted to live without oxygen and can breathe other elements like sulfur, iron or manganese. Many microbes can form spores, a bacterial hibernation state, and in this state persist for thousands of years, waiting for environmental conditions to improve for them. And this can happen very fast. For example, when a whale dies and sinks to the seafloor, it creates an oasis of life on the sandy seafloor that can last for many years. First, crabs, brittle stars and fish can smell the carcass from miles away and assemble in large numbers to feed on it. Once the bones have been picked clean, microbes take over. There are so many nutrients for them in the bones, microbes can grow in numbers large enough for us to see them with our own eyes. Covering large parts of the whale skeleton, we see biofilms of microbes who specialize in sulfur and nitrogen metabolism. These are called Pechatoa, and there are probably a few different species of them. These bacteria form long strings called filaments. They make this microbial mat look like a plush carpet. The white color comes from the sulfur they store in their cells. Sometimes they also appear orange, like on the skull here, or yellow, and scientists are not yet sure why that is. Bacteria also have predators, like these snails here that feed on them. In some cases, bacteria can produce toxins that keep predators away or kill other microbes. Microbiologists like myself like to study these toxin-producing bacteria, because sometimes these toxins can be used as medicines for us humans. Chemical compounds from bacteria and other microorganisms, such as antibiotics for example, are used by doctors to treat infections and other diseases, but for diseases without a cure yet, scientists are looking into bacteria and other organisms from the sea to hopefully find one. Marine sediment has many more bacteria than any other place in the ocean, so when we get the chance, we collect sand and bring it back to the laboratory. When I put some of this sand onto a petri dish containing food for the bacteria, they start to grow and multiply until there are enough bacteria for me to see them. This can take several days, but even after weeks or months, new colonies of microbes can show up still. By growing bacteria in the lab, we can investigate the different chemicals they make. Maybe it is a new drug to treat cancer, or a biological dye for fabrics? I will keep you posted. There are plenty of microorganisms that cannot grow in the lab though. Then I have to use different methods to study them, and the roles these bacteria have in the seafloor ecosystem. we try to learn more about how the seafloor microbes contribute to the global cycles of carbon, nitrogen, and other elements. I'm always fascinated by all these interesting organisms hidden in this seemingly boring bottom of the sea. Are you as well? As our journey reaches the end of the sediment plains, we see a large mountain rise out of the seafloor. This mountain in the sea is called, guess what? A seamount. Mountains are made of rocks, and many seamounts are volcanoes. Measured from the seafloor bottom, they can be higher than the highest mountains on land. This seamount is called San Juan Seamount, and it is around 320 kilometers or 200 miles offshore Southern California. Deep down in the ocean, the rocks of the seamount appear as if they are covered in a black chocolate glazing. This glazing is called ferromanganese crust and is rock solid. It contains metals such as iron and manganese. This crust on the rocks forms very slowly and grows only between 1 and 10 millimeters in a million years. Maybe bacteria are involved in the forming of these crusts, but we are not sure yet. In contrast to sandy bottom, rocks and those ferromanganese crusts provide a much more stable surface for organisms to attach to. As we climb up the slopes of San Juan Seamount, we come across this sea cucumber in a very private moment. Sea cucumbers are the earthworms of the ocean, eating sand and debris, digesting everything edible inside and releasing it on the other end, in this case directly onto a spaghetti worm. Did it do that on purpose? Not sure we will ever know. Except for when you are this lucky or not so lucky worm, there is not much sediment accumulating on top of you when you live on the side of a seamount on ferromanganese crusts. Instead, there is a lot of stable rock to attach to. Sponges are animals that like to be attached to rocks. Sponges can grow very large and hundreds of years old. Sponges suck. Yeah, that's right. They suck up water from the surrounding and pump the water through their body, where they filter out anything edible. Then they channel the water towards their chimneys and expel it out as far away as possible. Even though this sounds like a simple task, sponges have evolved very different shapes and sizes to do just that. For example, this sponge grows on a large stalk, enabling it to reach high into the current. This sponge is called the Venus flower basket sponge, and it has a pair of shrimp living inside its chimney. The shrimp grow too big to escape their safe and clean house, so they stay inside their entire life. In the deep sea, many sponges build their skeletons out of glass fiber material, silicate. They can form and shape their transparent skeleton in many different ways. Sturdy and solid, or more loose and soft. Many animals like to live on their large bodies. They provide a place to hide, food, or just a beautiful neighborhood. As such, sponges are so-called ecosystem engineers. By living and growing in the environment, they create a habitat and shelter for many other species that are dependent on them, like these many shrimps and brittle stars living in its tissue. Deepwater sponges can live for hundreds or thousands of years. Theoretically, they are even immortal. However, they can still die when environmental conditions are not good for them. But even in death, their skeletons can remain stable for a while and provide food for some of the deep sea's most ferocious carnivores, brittle stars. Sponges in shallow water often produce bad-tasting substances that protect them from being eaten by other animals. Whether deep-sea sponges do this too is yet to be discovered, like so many other things that we don't know about them. For example, we have no idea which species this beautiful yellow sponge is. We slowly reach the top of San Juan Seamount. Water currents are influenced by the underwater landscape and can be very strong, like wind on an exposed mountaintop. Where the currents flow the strongest, many corals and sponges spread their bodies to capture the food floating by. Corals are animals, tiny upside-down, jellyfish-like creatures that stretch their tentacles out into the water and move whatever food particles they can capture into their mouths, which are in the middle of their tiny bodies. Because these corals have 8 tentacles, they are called octocorals. One coral animal is really small, but they live with thousands of their identical twins in large colonies. Together, they build their skeleton, which can look very different depending on the coral species. These coral colonies can become very large and old, up to thousands of years. Corals are also ecosystem engineers, forming deep-sea coral reefs. Where corals thrive, many other animals can make a home too and take advantage of the large structures they form, eat the coral's waste products, or feed on the coral itself. These coral reefs also provide food for bigger animals, like the charismatic Dumbo octopus. Such reefs are hotspots for biodiversity. Look how many different animals are in this area compared to the uniform sandy bottom we saw earlier. Many species of animals form symbiotic relationships with corals. This can be a good or bad thing for the coral itself. For example, this sea anemone-like animal is taking over the surface of this golden coral and is competing with the coral's polyps for food. Other animals, like some serpent stars, also live in close symbiosis with their octocoral host. So close, they are almost never present as free living individuals. These serpent stars can spend their entire life on one coral colony. And where small creatures can thrive, predators will arrive to hunt for them. Like this Pacific grenadier looking for prey. Fish like this one need deep-sea coral reefs to find food and a safe place to lay their eggs, which is just one of the many important reasons for protecting coral reefs from destruction. We leave the top of San Juan Seamount and make our way back towards the continent. As we move through the water column, we meet the animals that live there. Our first encounters are jellyfish. These elegant creatures consist of 95% water. They have a very simple body consisting only of an outer skin, an inner skin, and a jelly in between. This is a helmet jelly, 1,072 meters or 3,517 feet deep. Many jellyfish have tentacles with stinging cells. They use them to paralyze their prey, which can be shrimp, fish, crabs, and tiny plankton. Their bodies resemble a bag, having only one opening at the top, serving both as the entrance and exit for their food. This one is the dinner plate jelly. As you can see, scientists have been quite creative with common names for these jellies. This beautiful red jelly here, however, doesn't seem to have a common name yet. Its scientific name is Borrelia rufescens. What common name would you give it? These animals look very similar to jellyfish, but they are not. They are called ctenophores, with a silent C, or comb jellies. Comb jellies have 8 comb rows of little hair called cilia along their sides. These cilia beat synchronously and move ctenophores through the water. The light from the ROV gets scattered and reflected by these cilia, creating a fabulous light show. This is called iridescence. It's the same effect as the shimmering of hummingbird feathers. We still don't know much about ctenophores, and new species get discovered quite frequently. This is one of the most magnificent gelatinous animals of the deep, the galaxy siphonophore. What looks like one individual is in fact a colonial organism, meaning that many small organisms live together to make up one large one, similar to corals. Siphonophores start with one body but grow by copy-pasting themselves over and over while remaining attached to each other. In this way, the whole siphonophore colony can get up to 40 meters long, longer than a blue whale. The different individual bodies all specialize in a task to support the colony. Some catch prey, others digest food, some reproduce, and others again do the swimming. Siphonophores are very fragile, yet very dangerous predators of the deep sea. They can produce light to attract fish to their long tentacles, where they can snare and stun the fish before slowly digesting them. Some siphonophores, like this sea dandelion, can attach themselves to the rocks on the continental shelf. Now we arrived at the continental shelf. Here we are much closer to shore, around 20 kilometers or 12 miles from the coast. This means that sediment accumulates much faster than out in the open ocean. You can see that the rocks are no longer the black oceanic crust, but covered with sand instead. Many fish live on the continental slopes, like the commercially important rockfish. Rockfish are among the longest living fish known. They can get up to 200 years old. Since some rockfishes don't breed until they're 20 years old and have only very few young, they are highly vulnerable to overfishing. Many populations have almost disappeared in Southern California, but with establishing protected areas or fishing bans, some populations have been saved from extinction. You might wonder why this fish has such a bright red color. This is because red light gets filtered out very fast in water, giving everything this distinctive blue-green hue. Red light never reaches depths below 100 meters. Therefore, with no red light around to reflect off the red fish, being red is equivalent to being invisible in the deep sea. Not much is known about this dog-nosed witch eel that can swim forward and backwards with the same ease. Maybe this is an advantage when it has to hide from predators, like this cat shark here. Since there is a lot more sediment accumulating on the continental slopes, some fish have adapted very well to hide in it and become invisible. The body of the Dover sole has evolved to become completely flat, with its two eyes very close to each other on one side of its body. It is born as a normal fish, but one eye starts to move towards the other side soon after hatching, and the sole transforms into a flatfish. With this body shape, it can spend most of its time hidden in the sediment, with only its eyes sticking out, lurking for prey. They usually eat small crustaceans, worms or bivalves. This one here might have overestimated himself by trying to eat an entire eel. As we continue to explore the continental shelf, we find a very special place, an underwater methane seep. Where the oceanic plate meets the continental plate, there is a lot of volcanic activity going on. Here, our planet exhales methane, a gas so high in energy we use it to power our gas stoves. But deep in the ocean, microorganisms are the only ones that can use this energy to their advantage. Completely independent of the sun, so much energy is available here that bacteria grow in numbers large enough for us to see them with our own eyes, forming these fluffy biofilms. These bacteria here consume the methane and produce baking soda as a side product, resulting in these beautiful white rock formations. Most importantly, they prevent most of the methane from reaching the atmosphere, where methane acts as a powerful greenhouse gas and contributes to global warming. One of the many services methane seep communities provide to the planet is to keep underwater methane emissions in check. Where there are a lot of microorganisms, bigger organisms start together as well, most of which are adapted to the special conditions created by the methane seep. Worms, snails, crabs and clams eat the bacteria, or even better, form symbiotic relationships with them. These crabs are covered with a white bacterial fur. They appear to be farming bacteria on their bodies to be able to conveniently eat them whenever they are hungry. We can even see them waving their claws through the water, making sure their bacterial fur gets all the methane, oxygen, and hydrogen sulfide it needs to grow and flourish. The first of these so-called Yeti crabs has only been discovered as recently as 2005, and this particular methane seep was just discovered on this very expedition. Since the methane seep provides a lot of energy and carbon in the nutrient-poor and cold deep ocean, many organisms gather here for warmth and food. Life is drawn to other life. Beyond bacteria and the visible large animals, countless species of tiny animals called macrofauna and meiofauna can be found here as well. These include, for example, worms, amphipods, tiny snails, clams, oysters, cockles, mussels, and scallops. This high biodiversity around methane seeps supports fish larvae and all larger animals in this ecosystem. Therefore, methane seeps are highly valuable habitats, creating flourishing oases for life in the deep. There is still so much we don't know about these oases of the deep. We need to make sure they remain protected from destruction by bottom trawling fisheries or the oil and gas industry. The methane seep was our last stop at the seafloor, and we start our ascent up through the water. Floating there, we meet the curious clawed armhook squid. This squid lives at around 700 meters or 2,300 feet, but rises to the surface in the cover of night to feed. These squid possess fins on the sides of their mantles to swim, but mostly they rely on a water jet propulsion mechanism to move fast. More than 300 species of squid are known, and they come in many shapes and forms. Squid are very intelligent and curious beings. Many can change the color of their skin and eject a cloud of ink to distract their predators. Even though they look similar to octopuses, they are quite different animals. For example, they have an internal shell that is hard and made out of chitin for supporting their body shape. Squid also have 8 arms and 2 tentacles, whereas octopuses only have 8 arms. As we slowly rise up into the twilight zone, we encounter another squid that looks almost too magical to believe. This is the piglet squid. It grows 8 to 10 centimeters, about 3 to 4 inches in length, and is one of about 60 species of glass squid. In the twilight zone, its transparent body helps to keep him camouflaged and almost invisible. The piglet squid has an unusual habit. It swims upside down, making its arms look like a weird mop of hair, or in this case, fabulous antlers and charming eyelashes. What a special animal to observe in its natural habitat. As we rise up further, we pass through a large cloud of pyrosomes. These colonial animals can consist of thousands of individuals joined together in gelatinous tubular bodies. They can produce light, which is what the name pyrosome, Greek for fiery body, refers to. We don't know much about their biology or their role in marine ecosystems, but they seem to become much more dominant in recent years. These filter-feeding organisms can grow very fast and can have a significant impact on plankton blooms. Phytoplankton, those tiny microscopic plants, grow only in the sunlit areas of the surface ocean. This means we have reached the water surface again, marking the end of our journey through the oceanic depths. We just ascended from the deep-sea methane seep at Las Vegas, which is only 20 kilometers off the coast of Los Angeles, halfway between Dana Point and Santa Catalina Island. In San Diego, the deep sea starts already 4.5 kilometers or 2.8 miles from the coast, where the underwater Scripps Canyon and the La Jolla Canyon meet. Thus, the deep sea is much closer than you might think. In the same way, the deep sea is also much more vulnerable to human impacts than one might think. In the past, large amounts of toxic waste were dumped into the deep sea. Even though this has been forbidden since, a lot of plastic waste still gets washed out to sea, where it also reaches the deep ocean. Animals mistake it for food or accumulate it through filter feeding. The fishing industry has expanded its reach even to the deepest waters and removes large amounts of animals, thus depriving these ecosystems of important community members. Last but not least, climate change and the resulting ocean acidification and warming change the water chemistry as well as the circulation patterns of the deep ocean. We still know so little about the deep sea and are in the process of destroying it even before we have explored it. Thus, it is very important to learn as much as we can about it and make people aware of the wonders and beauties of the oceans so we can collectively protect and conserve the largest ecosystem on Earth. I hope I could show you how diverse, full of life and special the deep ocean is, and maybe inspire you to learn more about it yourself. By now, you already know a lot more about the deep sea than most people on Earth. You learned about the size and expanse of the deep sea and its different zones. You visited the abyssal plains full of microorganisms, and together we investigated a seamount and learned about the corals and sponges there that provide habitat for countless other species. We met the fascinating gelatinous animals that live in the water column, such as jellyfish, ctenophores, and siphonophores. We continued to explore the continental shelf with all its different shapes and forms of fishes, and even visited a methane seep inhabited by yeti crabs. On the way to the surface, we encountered beautiful squid and found ourselves in the middle of a pyrosome party. We realized that the deep sea is much closer than we might think, and learned about the importance of protecting it for us and future generations. Help me to spread the word about the wonders and beauties of the deep ocean. Let's work together to protect all forms of life on our fascinating planet. Thank you for watching. and I'll see you in the water.